Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the last session of our festival this year. It was supposed to be Poetry Day, but unfortunately, due to circumstances, we had to just have one session. But what session it's going to be? We have 3 poets here, and we're excited to hear about them, but also to hear some of their work. Thank you very much to those of you who've joined us in the previous days. It's been a long week of various events, interviews, talks, tete-a-tetes, and we're arriving here now for some poetry readings. So without further ado, I'm giving floor to Nneoma. Will it be all right if we start with you? So Nneoma will introduce herself, and then we'll hear some of her works, and that will be wonderful. I'm very excited to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, my name is Nneoma Otuegbe. I am an accidental poet. I'm currently conducting doctoral research at the University of Wolverhampton. And well, my poetry collection is called Rummaging for Omens. So I'm going to read a bit. I've got, well, 3 or 4 poems to share with you guys. I'm really honored to be a part of this, and well, any opportunity to share the written word or to to just talk about books is just my thing. So thank you. So the first poem that I'd like to share with you is called Catching Trains, which I wrote on a train ride during the pandemic. So enjoy. It moves with the steady grace of a tortoise. This morning, only a lonely minute decided our fate. This morning, galloping through these now familiar lines, like a horse tired of a bullying master, this white monster bears us to the snowless hills of Coventry. Bubbles of emotions and colors of languidness splashed across this gloomy morning are nothing compared to the hollowness that lingers long after I steal out of the bed, long before the boys awaken. When summer comes, will the sun blind the dreaminess and snatch my tired body from his shriveled hands that soon mutate into twisted lips and release fearful demons from his blackened depths. Demons who predict disaster, empty cold stomachs which bloat at home and burst abroad. A dangerous horror advances, and as I often do to brush up these wooing, I opened the little bag and began to layer on some war paint. The mask we wear against our strange visitor has saved me the cost of lipstick for far too long. So once again, I focus on the parts left and plunged into obscurity. Face coverings must be worn on public transport unless exempt. Soon, the honeyed voice of the woman hastens. We now approach Coventry. When leaving us here, a subtle reminder to take our own rubbish along. So that's the first one, Catching Train. I've got another one to share. And I'd like to say that my poems reflect my sort of double heritage, a sort of home and homeland situation where I'm in between this beautiful, beautiful new culture and also bring parts of me from my Nigerian heritage. So this one's called Libations, and this was written in honor of my dad who passed during the pandemic again. I'm sure by now you understand how when I say I'm an accidental poet, it has a lot to do with the pandemic. So enjoy Libations. Delicate dread crawls into the numerous cracks undone by death's callous rider when its faceless hands nicked you into the unknown plains, where hopefully ancestors grow fat on libations and wistful reminiscences. The third bottle of Jack Daniels sits on the desk, each carefully half drunk, to wet the throat that you left behind and the ground in yours over there. These feet move in reluctance, dancing to a dirge, which begins and ends in the earnest hope that forever is not a hoax, grilled by forerunners to those who follow behind. This cheerful trepidation, is it an omen that another tree falls soon? Or is it the way of a world, like beginnings and ends and worlds without end? When these amens topple onto one another and the skies grow heavy with rain, do the ancestors gather with open arms to receive another worshipper in your cathedral pub? Or do they blatantly refuse the approaching horse? Ramblings are the lot of the mad and the bereaved, like the many tearful entities converging in this body tonight. Apologies, forgive, forget. Let no words of complaint escape your sated lips. These libations freely flow because ramblings often hold the hand of spirits to close the gap between night and day. The crack slept by the heartless rider requires more than wit and grit to cement. Stronger spirits must roam the shelves. Thank you. That's it for libations. And well, I'm going to share this one, which this one was written for my son Uriel, and it's titled Uriel. This birdie has birthed kings and warriors through millennia. It returns in a cosmic rhythm, each royal nascence more heralded than the last, but never once has it channeled an angel wingless into earthly longevity until you, Uriel. Christian for paradisiacal light, darkness qualms at the sight of you, and I, your vessel, I marvel at the details in the stars, and your choice of me to be your mortal guide. True, some days I cringe at the sight of certain parts of me, parts which now sullen point towards the earth, like tired papayas sucked half dry by marauding birds, in a frantic attempt to resist an inevitable fall. As it turns out, angels have quite the appetite and powerful lungs. Who knew? My life was a dance of many winters, a single sprout rising from icy gloom, reaching with outstretched arms to an eternal summer. Uriel, 1,000 eternal summers blink at the very sight of your light. I cannot be prouder to guide your flight. Thank you. I will then read the last one, which, I'll read the last one because I'll read 3. Okay, so this one's called Home Skies. Home beckons in that beguiling voice, pledging a happily ever after, mingled with thorns and bittersweetness. Isn't it common knowledge that bitter leaf leaves a sweet aftertaste in its wake when accompanied by water, guiding Utara down the throat? Home is a garden of heady aromas, mouth-watering gardens of Igusian stories. Home is paved with thorns, but its roses offer divine perfume. It is true that one becomes certain of the romance in darkness, but the sun smiles ever so widely over the many hustles of home. Every child knows the family secret, but insists on a nostalgic return. And when it is yet impossible to luxuriate under home skies, the dance begins again, reaching for the stubborn gray skies of home, like shivering hands for the soothing balm on this cold body under borrowed blue skies. Thank you.
Thank you, Nneoma. It's beautiful. Tina, would you like to go next, please?
Yes. Hello.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say my thanks to Rob Francis for asking me, I was delighted to be asked to join you this afternoon. I'm going to read some poems, well, one poem from my collection, Forge, which came out last year and focuses on my Black country heritage. And then some other poems that have been written much more recently, which are a development of Forged in an attempt to cover something broader than my own personal history, but into multi-generational trauma, really. it's going beyond the immediacy of my own experience. I'm currently doing an MA, which is nearly finished, and some of the poems that I'm going to read today are ones that I hope are going to get me a good mark in my dissertation. So the first one I'm going to read is from Forged, and most of the poems in Forged were narratives, they're stories, they are background issues, and the first one is called Heirloom Landscape. My childhood town was backlit by chimneys, eyes shot pell-mell with firework explosions. Its contours were shackled streets, back-to-backs, where every yard watch knew the four-walled sweat of forging families, a tin bath in the yard. The arc of muscles tempering steel, barks embroidering soot. Long-fingered canals joined hands of black country towns, fed furnace mouths before factories sucked men into piecework days and hours measured in pence, empty pockets rustling applause for their betters and their benefactors. Half-sunken barges now evidence that bygone trade, quiet conduit of water growing old in a stagnant bath. But mine will be a quiet return. I will seek out ghosts that linger on wasteland puddled with grief, while starlings are stirring skies into a murmuration of wordy swarf. And I will still be the person who left my roots behind, tried to grow an oak tree without them. I will lay artificial flowers on neglected graves. And look, here are my poor ancestors, trailing their smoke and rage and debris, all those generations of blame and hot air, yet they would still spend their last coins on something just for me. Second poem is it's a kind of scene-setting poem that I've written to open my next book, and it's called A Little Miss Story. We all know Roger Hargreaves and his Little Miss stories. Well, here's my Little Miss story. Little Miss Little, the premature baby, learned to take small breaths inside the hourglass incubator. Father Little, a cloudy man, cycled to the foundry inferno, forged pockets of swarf into a miniature army. In quiet moments, he was heard to say, if there are men on the moon, then we must look smaller than I sometimes feel. Mother Little wrapped herself in busyness, preferred wilting flowers and the company of ghosts flat-packed in the attic to any living adult. She liked things neat, tidiness next to godliness. Grandma Little came and went, lit the fire of family strife, left ashes in her wake, always brought her own poker. Milk stout in hand, she shouted obscenities at the tiny television. Nothing but tarts and flyboys. Money talks, but never spoke to me. Baby Little grew up, vixen wary, a sponge for criticism, soon let go of the fairy godmother dependency, knew the score. Dead brother Little, the highly favoured, was pressed between the pages of the heirloom Bible. Prayers were said in vain for his resurrection, his memory beatified. Lousy Aunt Gladys took the first train to the city, busied herself creating the legend of Good Time Girl, left babies on doorsteps, redoubled her lipstick, ruby, carmine, last tango in scarlet, burned all the sisterly bridges. Daddy Little kept cycling the canal path, fading like a will-o'-the-wisp. Little Miss Little was given books on wild animals and learned much from the chameleon, the rhino, the cheetah. She won medals for running. on Sunday afternoons when rain lacquered pavements, family little played games of dumb luck. The trick was to get rid of points that might score against you. Father little was never any good at that. Mother little seemed not to notice the loss of days burned to Eden and back. All those souls needing something quiet, something loyal, something divine, like a dog's eyelids fluttering in sleep. Little Miss Little gave up the kind of asking that would never be answered, painted on the mask of, I don't give a fuck, and wrapped her neck with grandmother's heirloom pearls, each bead strung together in perfect separateness. I was trying to put together the next sort of selection of poems, the next group of poems. One of the things that troubled me was how to write about traumatic events without it sounding terribly boring. What we didn't want was just, another misery memoir. And a lot of people, poets that I read, were a great influence on me and gave me ideas on how to do that better. And one of those was Caroline Bird, who deploys humour and surrealism so beautifully to put across very serious and emotional and traumatic themes. She's brilliant at it. So here's a poem that was influenced by her, and it's called Last Wednesday at the Laundrette. Last Wednesday at the laundrette, Caroline Bird was counting out change, putting sentences into the plastic porthole, a miniature parcel in the slot. It's the only way to do poetry, she said. I noticed the words warship, shame, vaporous, but too soon the letters realigned themselves. And I thought of grandma's wash days, the heap cotton froth in a wicker basket, egging out, great wallops of wind filling the body of shirts and boiled wool combinations. Her hands carbolic burned, thin as red frost. These stories have been washed countless times, bleached until colour bled from the centre with only the edges retaining any sense of originality. Yet still, I chose a machine, dialed the temperature to volcanic, in the hope that they might shrink or dissolve like a soluble aspirin, leaving behind something bubble-like, frothy. Caroline mutters to herself about ketchup stains, elephantine footprints, the shame of sanitary towels. Her machine is a floating ruse of redemptive foam. I cannot see through it. It could be dandruff, snow, or a Christmas globe, where a glitter life always settled back to the centre. Now I am thinking about vacating my own skin, laundering it, hoping for full restitution. I could watch as it coalesces parts worth saving, fibres winding and spinning into a clump of everyday ordinary, then make plans based on a more reliable template. Outside, the rain is biblical, clog days dancing on steamy pavements, pounding until gutters gurgle the day into a kind of new. Caroline tumbles her words in hot air, folds her pages into a neat collection. Grandma puts the dolly tub away. I shrug the shroud of my future self from the dryer. And I'll just read this last one. This is another new poem, a little bit more serious, I might say. It's called Whole, and it's spelt both H-O-L-E and W-H-O-L-E. Whole. Afterwards, you leave a hole, small, round, just off centre. I could not call it grief. It is simply a darkness beneath my breast, a sun and a moon in a cage of bones. A neat pastry circle, the centre lifting out cleanly like those you cut for mince pies at Christmas. It passes right through, front to back, with no raw edges. just the cold air rushing along the tiny tunnel. Other times it's a window where people can stop, try to glimpse an inner life, but the view is to another place, another street, where only happy people walk by. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. I think we don't have Roy yet. I hope he's all right. But yes, hasn't joined us this afternoon, but perhaps we can share one of his videos in the future when he joins us. So Felicity, if you just, oh yes. Thank you so much, Nneoma and Tina. Thank you for your beautiful readings, and so different they are. Fascinating. So thank you for sharing those this afternoon with us. And I think they really worked well for closing the festival. It's definitely something for us to consider for the future, that poetry is one of the best ways, if not the best way, to share in closing the festival. I want again to thank everyone, all of our speakers, authors, poets, publishers who joined us this festival and talked to us, talked to each other, talked to our audience. I would like to thank the volunteering team who made it all happen. All of us are here doing it for essentially for free. So thank you very much, everyone who's been involved this year and last year. And we hope we will be able to come back to you all next year, and there will be Middleway Words 2023, most likely again in November. It seems to work well in November. We would appreciate any feedback you have. Just send us an email on hello@middlewaywords.org.uk, or drop us a line via Facebook or Twitter, just to say what you would like in the future, what you liked this year or last year if you attended the festival, and what we could do better. Any feedback would be really, really appreciated. And the last but by no means least thing, I would like to remind us all that today is a Remembrance Day, and I know that we had a minute of silence at 12 noon, but perhaps we could also just have some time to honor the day, to honor those people who fell when we switch off the cameras today, and when we stop the broadcasting. And before we go and do other things in the evening, perhaps we could just spend some time to remember things. So thank you very much, everyone, again, and see you next year.